Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to talk about our project. We are very, very proud of it. We are also really thrilled to have the work that we have done, everybody has done, recognised by the Community Archive and Heritage Group through the award. So thank you for that. Right, I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully this will all go swimmingly. I've introduced myself. My name is Elaine Davis. I'm the engagement officer here at Chippenham Museum, and presentation today will be between myself and Nicola Dew, who is the lecturer in media for Wiltshire College and University Centre, who we have been working with and who will talk about the project in as far as the students are concerned. So, okie dokie, let's go. If I can change the slide. What was Gold Diggers? Well, Gold Diggers was a nightclub. It was opened in March 1981 in the former Gaumont Cinema building in Chippenham, Wiltshire. But there is more to it than that. Gold Diggers was an important venue in the music scene of the 80s and 90s. For nearly 20 years, it played host to the top bands and acts of the day, opening with the raunchy dance troupe, Hot Gossip, followed by, well...
that's the one you made up for me.
I put a birthday in for the Facebook page.
Mr. Rising. Bridget, every fucking year.
Can you still hear me? Yeah? Can you still hear me? Yeah.
Who is it?
Community Archives.
Okay, so nearly 20 years, it played host to the top bands and acts of the day, opening so with the raunchy dance group Hot Gossip, followed by just basically everybody you can think of. This actually isn't everybody. I actually ran out of room on the slide to put everybody that it played there. So just a few of the acts of the 80s and 90s. So Gold Diggers was used by the BBC for recording its Sight and Sound concert, and it became part of Richard Branson's Virgin chain of go-to night spots. It put the little town of Chippenham on the map, with people coming from far and wide for a good night out. But most importantly, it played a really important role in the lives of those who went there and worked there. However, despite its massive popularity in the 80s and early 90s, the club began to decline, and it closed in the late 1990s, and in 2000, the Art Deco building was demolished. So, as the 40th anniversary of the club opening approached, the museum recognised that we had very little in our collection to reflect the significance of this lost venue. So the idea of a project to capture the memories of those that worked at or were regulars of Gold Diggers was formed. The museum's aim was twofold: add depth to the small number of related objects that we had in our collection through oral histories, from those associated in some way with the venue, and identify and possibly collect objects to build up that part of our collection. While the undertaking of oral histories could have been done by the museum staff, after a chance conversation with Nikki Dew, it was decided that the documenting of the interviews through video would add an actual additional dimension to the project, and therefore, working with the media students was discussed. It was agreed that the work would form part of the students' work experience, and it was thought that the project would run for a few months and consist of a few interviews. At that point, we had no idea or even imagined there would be the interest and excitement that there was. In fact, an initial call out on social media brought only a few responses. Now, I've actually realised that I've shared my screen, but there's something that I need to do. So I'm going to come off of sharing my screen a second. So apologies, you see me again, but I'm going to do that, and do that. And that should now hopefully work what I want to do next. So as I said, we initially put a call out, but we didn't have very many responses. But in March 2019, we did a Memories Day. And this is actually when the project really began. We had nearly 200 people come to find out more and to reminisce. And the students set up a mobile recording studio, and it was in constant use throughout the day. Recordings were being done singularly and in groups, and the interviews produced laughter, cheeky stories, and lots more. What I'm hoping is that I will be able to show you a little trailer that we did.
Wear little white shorts and your white stilettos, and I had a all orange outfit with matching handbag and shoes. You'd always put your handbag in the middle and dance around it.
We all go down from college at lunchtime to see if we can see the band.
Foams up to your neck. Who knows what's going on underneath?
And Golden Brown was written more or less entirely Gold Diggers.
So there was a gentleman at the door. I said he's dressed a bit scruffy actually. I said, says he's Richard Branson.
Yeah. Are you going to bring back Gold Diggers? Could we have like?
Yeah, if you could do that,
yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah.
As one 50-something put it, move on. This is great. Nobody has ever been interested in the memories of my youth before. I never thought anything that I would have to say would be of interest to anyone. It was at this point that we knew we had something special. This really was giving people a feeling of worth and celebrating a shared past experience. The project really took off, and the team of students went on to interview and edit around 40 interviews. And these are just some of the images taken when we were interviewing. So the outcomes, what were the outcomes? Well, as I said, when we started this, the museum's aim was to add depth to what we had in the collection related to Gold Diggers, with oral histories and possibly add objects to the collection. Well, we did this. We now have a wealth of personal memories, and throughout the collection of the interviews, thought has been given to copyright, long-term preservation, and long-term access. We also had the donation of a range of objects to the museum, developing our collection, which will preserve the story of this important venue for the future. But there have been many unexpected outcomes, and I cannot lie, some of the best things about the project were not originally planned. But we've had some great things that have happened. So the objects we acquired, along with generous loans of personal memorabilia, enabled us to curate an exhibition, which attracted over 1,500 visitors. It was open for 2 months. It was closed in March. It was due to go into April, but obviously closed a month early. But we had, like I said, 1,500 visitors. These are just a few of the images from the exhibition. And this is two of our wonderful volunteers. The volunteers really enjoyed this exhibition and took it to heart. Only COVID actually slowed our ambition for events and activities around this exhibition. But even despite COVID, we did manage a few events. This is students, one group of the students coming to have a look at the exhibition. We managed to get in a vintage and vinyl day, attracting nearly 300 people, and an 80s themed quiz night with 10 teams of 8, which we ran in partnership with our local library. And that happened the week before we went into lockdown. So we just managed to squeeze that one in. Many of those who gave interviews came to see the exhibition or attended one of the events had never visited the museum before. it was also an opportunity for some of them to get back together as well, to meet people that they hadn't met for a long time. As you look at the screen, on the left-hand side is Nigel Ross, and Nigel Ross was the gentleman who actually started the club in the very first instance. We strongly believe that this project has helped change attitudes towards heritage collections and traditional views of museums and archives within a group who are not our typical audience. We definitely had people who had never been to the museum before. During lockdown, the students again came up complete trumps, and all of the interviews were uploaded onto a project website. This was all designed and built by the students, and at the top here you can see this is the web address. But if you just put in Gold Diggers Memories into a Google search, it will probably be about the second or third thing that comes up. So do have a look at the website with all of the videos and all the interviews and the new video. But I'm sure Nikki will talk about more about that. Talking of the students, what about the students? What was their perspective from it? I did ask Nikki for some feedback at one point, and her comment was, our students have gained an awful lot from this intergenerational project. It is always valuable to work on a live brief. However, we weren't expecting our learners to get so engrossed in the stories from the 80s. It's given them excellent experience, as well as opening up conversations with parents and grandparents. But I'm not going to put words into her mouth. I'm going to let Nikki to take over. And if you just want to say when you want the slide, Nikki, over to you.
Hello, any good?
There we go.
Sorry about that.
Started to panic. I was going to do it
well, I probably panicked you a little bit there, Elaine. I'm sorry, I didn't leave you at the right at the last minute. So yes, so the students were a little bit reticent at first. I don't think they quite knew what to expect from this project, but as time went on, once they heard stories about people that they knew their parents listened to. So one of the students that was involved very early on was the son of a massive Paul Weller fan. Paul Weller had not only played at Gold Diggers as the Style Council, but had also done his comeback gig as a solo artist at Gold Diggers. And as soon as this particular lad heard this story, he went home and said to his dad, Dad, did you know all this? And his dad said, yeah, mate, I was there. And it started this whole conversation among the learners where, independent of what we were kind of putting to them, they were starting to talk to their friends and their family, and so on and so on. So that was brilliant from our point of view. Can we have the next slide, please? So working with the community is a strategic objective for Wiltshire College and University Centre. It's really, really important for our students to be out there working in the community in whatever vocation that they choose. So for our students, Wiltshire's still a relatively rural county, so trying to find film experience is never going to be that easy. From our point of view, we've built up a system where we can use projects rather than placements as work experience. Because if I was to say to Elaine, can you take 45 students please for work experience, you'd probably fall off her chair. But if I can say, let's involve 45 students in a project over 3 years, that's much more achievable. And I'm saying this because I suspect that there are other community archive projects out there that could perhaps do something similar with whatever skills are in their local community. We did have up to 50 learners involved over 3 years, and that involves film and TV students, but also some of the music students who, as we kind of came out of lockdown, certainly the college reopened in September to face-to-face learning, we finalised the documentary and then we handed that over to our music team. So having worked with Elaine as a media team for a few years, the music team really came up trumps and they organised all of their lessons in September around 80s style music, and learnt the techniques that were involved there and basically wrote us an original score, so 30 minutes of an original score. Now, because we'd gone into lockdown, we were about 2 weeks away from releasing the documentary at that point. It went live in October half term, 26th of October. Can't think why we'd chosen that date, but we chose the 26th of October. And to date, we've had 2,810 views. That's today's figure, Elaine, which you might not have known about. 2,810, which is quite impressive. at the same time, because this was being talked about an awful lot by this particular age group of those in their sort of mid-50s, it went wild on the Gold Diggers Reunion Facebook page, which was a Facebook page set up by two of the ladies we'd interviewed because they'd been doing reunion 80s discos for some years, and that had kind of tailed off a bit. But this Facebook page went a little bit wild, and so the local radio station, BBC Radio Wiltshire, who we were already in touch with, kind of got wind of this, and basically in the week that the documentary was released, did a whole series of segments in their afternoon show. So actually the project was mentioned 3 times a day for 5 days, which was, I don't think Elaine and I even had that on our radar at the beginning. And, you know, we had interest from the local papers and so on and so on. And it just got people talking, which was absolutely brilliant because, as Elaine said, we got students down to the museum who would never really have engaged with that kind of environment, although they might have been as school children. By the time you're sort of 16, 18, it's not the sort of thing that you're going to do. They were going to the exhibition with their parents, which again is a great intergenerational thing. And they were going home having conversations, and then their parents were coming independently to the museum as well. So we had this whole virtuous circle going on. Next slide, please. Okay, so what we've got here is our pop-up green screen. So this is one of our interviews that we did. This was actually in college. So at the same time as doing the Memories Day on a Saturday at the museum, which was really, really busy. I mean, we stayed on top of it just about. We were almost a bit scared going into it because at one point we'd had 2,000 likes to the event, or 2,000 people saying they were coming to the Facebook event, which is a bit terrifying. But in the end, you know, we saw we managed to record all the interviews that came in, but we recognized that not everybody would come to the museum on a Saturday. So we did a couple of daytime slots, a couple of evening slots at the college as well. So we really promoted those as much as we could so that everybody who wanted to be involved could be involved. And out of that, we got a few leads of people saying, oh, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And we followed those up. We were also given some beautiful archive footage from a very strange BBC programme about going out, BBC West programme. And within that, one of the highlights was the 1985 hairy chest competition. And we managed to find 2 of the competitors and watched that footage back with them, recorded their reactions. So that made a really lovely piece in the documentary. So in a moment or two, I'll put a link to the documentary in the chat as well, so that we can get our views maybe to 3,000, who knows? But I think that's it from me, Elaine, unless there's anything else you want me to talk about. Oh, hang on, there we go. The what have students gained? There we go. I'll finish this bit off, sorry. So obviously they were learning their vocational skills. So camera work, lighting, editing, journalism skills, data wrangling. We had so much information. We've got probably 20, 30 hours of footage now, material to go through. They were learning client liaison. There were the softer skills of confidence, empathy, networking, professional communication, working with other people. It was probably the first time that they'd actually seen their lecturing team, or myself and our technician, working on a professional set. We set it up in college to look like a professional set, but this was in the real world. And so those divisions between lecturer and student disappeared, and we just became part of a team, which was quite good fun. They saw me get incredibly excited when we got a good story. As a former journalist, they don't quite often get to see that part of me because I'm being a teacher, but actually they got to see me get incredibly excited when we found the winner of the hairy chest competition. So, you know, that was quite good fun. And that's even before we get to all the intergenerational stuff that we talk about.
Shall we hear from the students, Nikki?
Let's do that, yes, because we stuck a camera in their faces as well.
Yeah, we did. Hang on a second, let's see if I can work this out. Yeah. Right, hang on 1 second.
There we go, that looks like...
With the Gold Diggers project, I found it really interesting, editing down the videos and learning.
Let's start from the beginning.
Not many people my age would know about gold diggers and how, like, even their parents met or how it was like for their parents growing up.
With the Gold Diggers project, I found it really interesting editing down the videos and learning all like the stories from the staff members. And then it's also I could tell it to my neighbours who went to the nightclub but never really knew what went on behind the scenes.
I got to meet more people, I got more work experience as well, which is always good, and it's kind of helped me in a way in my interviews when going to university now. It's helped me learn how to structure interviews better.
First of all, it was my first actual outside of college or any school experience with regards to an interview. I felt that it was really informative, especially Ken White. He was just such an amazing person and really inspirational.
I found it really interesting learning about Tracy's love story and about how she met her husband and how that she got one of the signs off of eBay and actually incorporated into her house, so she has a memory from Gold Diggers.
I got some really good editing work out of it, some nice work experience. It's nice to put on my CV to say that I worked for a documentary that got an award, you know, that's pretty impressive.
Really enjoyed the project as well because it was slightly different to the college work we were doing, so it was a nice kind of break from that, but still working and learning at the same time. And as I said, it was really fun to sort of hear everyone's stories and see this kind of history of Chippenham.
I think somebody mentions Ken White. This is Ken White. We tracked him down. He was he painted the mural on the side of Gold Diggers, on what was called the bit on the side when it was part of Virgin. Ken's work, he worked a lot with Richard Branson, and he was instrumental in doing the lady on the side of the Virgin aeroplanes. And this was actually such a pleasure to go with Nikki and her students to go and interview Ken. And he was so proud. His jumper that you can see, if anybody's ever read Richard Branson's autobiography, there's a picture of Richard Branson in a jumper exactly the same as this. And we had to hear all about the story of the jumper, how his wife, Ken's wife, had made the jumper, and Richard Branson's wife had really liked it. So therefore, Ken's wife knitted one for Richard Branson. So he has this jumper, and he had to go and get his jumper and have his jumper on for the interview. It was a really real pleasure, wasn't it, Nikki?
It was great. It was fantastic. Yeah. And I think the students really took from that, you know, it's all very well practicing the techniques in the classroom, but it's when you go out and find how lovely human nature is and what amazing people are out there and how they've got such great stories to tell, even if they are in their dotage, as Ken is, that they really took a lot from that, I think. I think some of our young people live so much of their lives online that it was just brilliant to be able to get them together with real people and real stories.
Right, I know we're sort of really running out of our time, Alan, but just quickly, can I just say, personally, this has been an amazing project to work on. It has been a joy and a pleasure to work with Nikki and the students who have gone beyond all of our expectations. You really have. For the museum, it has been brilliant. Gold Diggers has been remembered with great fondness by club goers and staff alike. And the project has invoked memories which prove that although the club is gone, it is definitely not forgotten. It has meant so much to people, and being able to acknowledge and celebrate the club and the museum has been an absolute privilege. I just want to leave you with one last image. This is Sam Butler. He is a local man, but had never visited the museum until the Gold Diggers project. He gave an interview and came to the exhibition. He came with his wife and two friends, and he came wearing his Gold Diggers stage pass, which he had treasured for nearly 40 years. Sam was a bassist for a local band, Protex Blue. Just see him pointing to his poster here. And he was proud that he had played at Gold Diggers. He played on the same stage where his idols had played, and they were continuing to play, so it was really important. I can remember somebody once telling me that a museum should be a mirror. Everyone who enters should see a little of their life reflected in an object. This is Sam's reflection, and it is really cool. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to tell you about the project. Thank you again for the award, and Nikki, thank you from me to you and your students. It has been fantastic.
It's been really good fun. We just need to think of what we're going to do next.
Absolutely.
Watch out for the musical, guys. That's the next step.
Gold Diggers the musical.
That's brilliant. Thank you both so very much. Thank you. We're all a bit muted, but I suppose we can do this, or we can do this. I believe that's the sort of But no, that's really fantastic. Thank you both very much. We've got like a couple of moments between each presentation for questions, but the plan really is to have a little session at the end of the webinar today. Nikki, I think sadly you can't stay till the end. But
no, I've got a lesson to go to, sorry.
But everyone else we've managed to pin down to the end. But I've been watching the chat. No questions have popped up yet, but people are saying how wonderful you both are. So that's good.
Oh.
I don't know if there's any immediate questions for people. Nope, just lots of people saying great projects. So they'll have a little think and corner Elaine at the end of the session, and you can grill her down on some things. So if that's okay, we will move along to our next presentation. And this is from Rachel Gillies at the People's Heritage Cooperative. Really close thing, to be honest with you, with the awards this year. So this is honourable mention, and we're really happy that Rachel can be with us and share some of their story too. So I'll hand over to Rachel. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And what a thing to follow as well. That's absolutely, what a stunning project. I'm going to take you to something completely different now. I think I'm going to try and share my screen and tell you a little bit about our project called Represents. So yes, here we go. Yep, nope, that's not what I need. That's not what I need. Should I try playing it instead? Here we go. Cooking on gas, cooking on gas. Okay, so my name is Rachel Gillis and I am the secretary of the People's Heritage Cooperative. We are a group of heritage professionals and creative practitioners that live in and around Birmingham. And we came together because we are interested in exploring and celebrating people's heritage and its relevance to our lives today. So we've got quite a broad remit, and we've worked for probably about 5 years now on a range of different projects. And I'll tell you a little bit about some of our previous projects and how they relate to the project that I'm presenting on today, which is called Represent. So, yes, so to start with, I wanted to give you a little bit of backstory to our project. We have either as the People's Heritage Cooperative or as individuals been involved in a number of heritage projects around Birmingham. And a lot of this focused on that period from 2014 to 2018, looking at the centenary of the First World War and of women first getting the vote. So here I wanted to showcase 3 different things that we'd been involved in. One is Women's History Birmingham, which actually wasn't a centenary project. Women's History Birmingham focused specifically on trying to tell stories of women who were involved in women's history and the women's liberation movement, kind of from the 1970s onwards. We developed a series of trails around the city that went to different areas where women had got specific memories, and that was a participatory project that we did with local school pupils. And those of you who were at the conference a couple of years ago may remember that I presented on that one. There was Fight for the Right, which was specifically about the suffragette movement in Birmingham, and again that was a school project. A film was created from some of those histories. And then in February 2018, I went to Birmingham Council House and we had an event on the 6th of February to mark 100 years since the passing of the Representation of the People Act, where the first women in this country were allowed to, well, were granted the right to vote. So there's a thread running through this. Political representation matters. These were the stories that we were beginning to tell. So we thought, well, isn't it fantastic that there's so much happening and there's such an appetite around marking this important centenary and this period of history where we're seeing so many people that are getting more politically active. There's important stories to tell here. But we felt that so many projects kind of stopped in 1918, and our question was, well, so what? Giving people the vote and acknowledging women as citizens is all well and good, but how do people actually use those rights? This is really the beginning of a story and not an end point. So that's where we came up with the Represent project. So our starting point for Represent was that the end of the First World War brought huge challenges. There's huge political and social upheaval around the world. We have a crisis in Birmingham of housing, of people coming home with disabilities, readjustment to peacetime, women who are being made redundant, and a lack of housing and secure employment. We also were aware that, there's the issue around the Spanish flu, and thought, well, that doesn't have very much relevance to today, does it? Little did we know at the time that that would turn into a little more of a prescient issue. But we wanted to know how people in Birmingham responded to the challenges and opportunities of the period. What was the impact on political representation, on campaigning, and the development of civic life in Birmingham? And are there any lessons to learn from those struggles today? So obviously, as a group of heritage professionals, the first thing that we wanted to do was get into archives. And actually it was archives that had inspired a lot of the development of this project. We'd been looking at various material when we were looking at the First World War projects that we were doing. And we kind of had an inkling of, places that we could look, things that we could explore. And certainly some of the members of the group had previously worked extensively in archives, but this really gave us a chance to go into some depth with looking at this very, very rich repository of archives. And there's a lot of material from the 1918 general election, which was known as the khaki election, because it took place in December 1918, so it's only a month after the war. The election was called at very short notice. And what immediately was obvious to us was parallels between the period of 1918 and today. So we're seeing questions around education and equal access. We're seeing things around Britain's relationship with Europe, the kind of meetings that are being called, the gatherings of people. So there's a lot of parallels that we thought we could maybe pull out through the project. However, we realised that it wasn't really about what we thought the parallels were. What we really wanted to do was to throw those out to other people. So this is kind of the how our project developed in those terms. You also realise that there's a lot of parallels in terms of representation, and I've highlighted some of our material here that we found, which was specific to the Ladywood division. So Ladywood at the time covered the centre of Birmingham, so this is really about Birmingham's MP for 1918 going forward after the war. And it was the only division, the only area of Birmingham where there was a female candidate who stood. And interestingly, and this drives me crazy every time I look at it, that we have a very, very articulate and very well educated woman who had been involved in the suffrage movement since she was an early teen. She had travelled all around Europe and had given talks. She was educated at Cambridge University, although wasn't awarded a degree because women weren't allowed to receive degrees at that period. But she is presented in the election material as the doting mother, with the slogan, "A soldier's wife for Ladywood." So we see how at the time society wasn't particularly ready to have a dynamic woman standing on a political platform, and they very much toned down her achievements. At the same time, we've got this fantastic cartoon of John Neeshaw, who was the Labour candidate, who gets absolutely lambasted because he had been involved in the movement around conscientious objection at the time, and the local newspaper, the Birmingham Mail, certainly didn't take to that too well. And then the third person some of you may recognise is Neville Chamberlain, who was the son of Joseph Chamberlain, who was seen as one of the founding fathers of Birmingham. And something that really struck me was when we were going into archives and looking at the newspaper coverage at the time, that you see the Birmingham Mail's editorial line. And I just wanted to highlight the Mail's responses to these three candidates. So this is only a few days before people go to the ballot box. So Corbett Ashby is dismissed as almost a stranger to Birmingham, and after she is flitted fitfully across the stage of this electoral contest, will no doubt vanish back into the unknown. Well, I can tell you that Marjorie Corbett Ashby is seen as the only woman who was involved in both the pre-war suffrage movement and was also involved in the women's lib movement of the 1970s. So she was going in to demonstrations well into her 80s. John Neeshaw we're told that he would have done better to work for his country laying bricks, as he was a former bricklayer, well and truly than he has done as an extreme socialist, as an official of the Independent Labour Party, as a pacifist, an anti-conscriptionist and a conscientious objector. So I think the Mail makes clear its line on pacifism there. But Neville Chamberlain, however, is the second son of Birmingham's second citizen, and right well has lifted up to the high ideals of public service which were born and bred in him. So it raises so many questions around class and around gender and around representation, which I think we've got echoes of that in our political discourse today. However, as I say, it's not down to me to make these parallels. We wanted to throw it out to community groups, and this is where our community engagement comes in. So we decided to work with two very different community groups. There's a group that are in the area which is adjacent to Ladywood, a part of Birmingham called Edgbaston, and there's a group of elders that meet on a Monday. They live in an area which has seen a lot of redevelopment over decades, from the supposed slums that existed at the time when Neville Chamberlain was involved in housing developments within the city, through to the demolition of that housing, development of new housing, social housing in the 50s and 60s, going from council housing into new developments around social housing. They're a group of people that feel as though they have been very much done to and haven't had a lot of agency in those decisions that have taken place in their community. We also worked with a group of women in Handsworth. Many of you will have heard of Handsworth. It is an area of Birmingham with a large Black and Asian community. Many of the women have got heritage that can be placed in the early 20th century in Bangladesh, in Pakistan. So it was interesting discussing some of the parallels with their own heritage with what was happening in Birmingham 100 years ago. But we wanted to explore some of these parallels that we saw in archives with these groups, so they could draw on their own life experiences and share things. Our project, we wanted to make sure, was completely led by the participants. So it wasn't for us to come along and say, this is important and this is important. It was about going in and listening to their responses to some of the archives that we were presenting them with. So we designed workshops. So initially we were presenting some of the archive material and some of the themes. We then went on to take both the groups into archives at the Library of Birmingham. So they had the opportunity to actually go into this space, which for many of them was something that they would never have considered doing before. And for some members of the group, even going out on a trip was quite a novel experience. We then allowed them to talk about their experiences, and we created space for them to have a think about how they wanted to present their ideas and their feelings about the material and about the topics to a wider audience. So we supported them in creating a brief for 2 different artists. So each group had the opportunity to choose who they were going to work with, what art form that would take, how involved they would be in the creation of that material, and then to lead the way with an artist just supporting and facilitating their creative process. So what we have is 2 different artworks that interpret this heritage. Throughout the project as well, we wanted to incorporate the 5 ways to well-being into each session. So we were looking at ways in which people could connect, they could get involved in nature. We had things like going for walks, we had trips, we were listening to one another, trying to focus on generosity in our sharing and being responsive to one another. So throughout we had a well-being focus. This is the creative interpretation. So you can see here we've got Ron. Ron is in his early 90s, and for him to get involved in sharing some of his memories about going to the local theatre and how that was such a crucial part of his life, but now these opportunities had very much been taken away from him as he felt priced out of many of the activities that he felt were so important to him. He was able to spend some time reflecting on that and actually ensuring that it was reflected in the work that we were creating. The Edgbaston group, they've created a beautiful banner. You can see some of that on the right hand side, using a combination of felt and using tracing, painting directly onto fabric. So using mixed media, they were able to have quite a hands-on experience with that. On the left hand side, we had an event on the 16th of December. It was the day before the general election last year anyhow. We had the women from Sahaley who had been working with a printmaker to create some slogans, vote for, and then they were able to highlight whatever it was that they thought was a really, really important issue. We started that work before last year's general election was called. So as we were doing the work, we spoke as a group and felt that we wanted to respond to the general election by actually having some space, having an event in Handsworth Park where the women could actually physically raise their banners around what it was that they felt were the most important issues. So our next steps, so we got that far and then we started planning our exhibition, which was going to be a touring exhibition for 2020, and I'm sure many of you can see what's coming. Things have been on a bit of a hiatus this year, let's say, but we are really, really desperate to share this fantastic artwork and interpretation with a wider audience. So we are working towards having a touring exhibition, which will go around to various community venues, hopefully in the spring, and we can showcase the artwork alongside a number of panels that have been designed, which are asking people to reflect on some of these stories. So we want it to be a balance of showcasing this very important heritage, but at the same time drawing parallels with the world today and how people can be active in their communities. I've also been commissioned for a research and development programme where I'm wanting to take some of these stories and develop it into a digital game which can go into educational settings, so that younger people have got the opportunity to reflect on how some of these stories about rights and representation impact upon people's lived experiences. So that's where we are at the moment. You can find out more on the website. Hopefully at some point soon we will be able to share a little bit more. We would ideally like to be putting up some podcasts and some extra material to complement the touring exhibition as it goes out. It's a work in progress, but hopefully I will be able to report back more in future.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rachel. That's another round of applause. You can hear me because I'm unmuted, but apart from that, silent round of applause. Thank you very much. That's fantastic. You can see why the category was a hard-fought one this year, can't you? We do have a couple of minutes for questions. Rachel is able to stay with us, I think, till the panel at the end. But if there are any immediate questions, if anybody's got anything they'd like to ask her right this moment, you can unmute yourself and shout out, or pop a hand up, which I'll try and spot, or put something in the chat. Anybody? No? No, there's some nice congratulations coming your way, Rachel, which is good. So, well, if that's the case, then what we'll do is we'll take a little 5-minute comfort break. And when we come back, we'll be hearing from Lorna Elms talking about the Irish Community Archive Network. But if you can all take, if you're all free for 5 minutes, but please be back for 4 o'clock. All right. Thank you very much. Could you put your hands up if you're not back, please? Yeah, that's looking quite lively, isn't it? Right. Okay, so we'll move on to our next speaker. So as I was saying at the beginning, all of these webinars are really focused around our awards, and 2 awards are really at the core, have been awards that we've given for a long time, and that's community engagement, which we're very focused on today, and also gathering and preserving heritage, which forms the topic of our next webinar. This year we introduced 2 new awards, one of them being well-being, which was discussed in our last webinar, which is obviously a factor that's really on our minds in terms of the heritage sector, and Kent Sporting Memories talked about that. And then the other new award that we brought in was a networks award, because we felt that networks are really the way forward in terms of community archives working together and supporting each other, and really dealing with, well, all the challenges that existed before 2020, and perhaps even more so now in the last sort of 12 months. So I'm pleased to announce, and it's already been announced, but the winner of that award, the award was the Irish Community Archives Network, and Lorna Elms is here to talk to us about that today. And I have the responsibility of working her PowerPoint. So let's see how well that goes. Hopefully that's popping up now.
Yeah, that's looking good.
Is it? That's good. That's encouraging. There we go. So what we'll do, Lorna, if we do the kind of government approach and you just say next slide, please, and I'll move it along for you. Okay,
that
so
sounds
brilliant. So I'll hand you over to Lorna. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. I was prematurely coming in there. Greetings, everybody from County Mayo in the west of Ireland. I'm really happy to be here today to talk to you about the Irish Community Archive Network, or ICAN for short, as it is a little bit of a mouthful. On slide 2, you can see just some of the people, both volunteer and professional, that are involved in the initiative. We put together this little montage to celebrate our award win, and needless to say, we're all thrilled and very proud of this achievement. On to slide 3 now, Alan. I'm going to be going fairly rapidly. ICAN is a National Museum of Ireland community engagement project delivered in partnership with local authorities and community groups. Together and collectively, we support the work of these volunteer groups in collecting, preserving and sharing their local history and heritage online. A key focus of ICAN is the digitisation of community collections and making these accessible to a wider audience. Our aim is to give members the tools to lead their archiving projects and then support their activities and help them move forward successfully. As a national museum, we recognise that much of Ireland's intangible, material and cultural heritage is in the care of its citizens, and that it is to the benefit of the Irish heritage sector as a whole to work together to ensure its preservation and access. The archival material, as well as the local memory and knowledge of community members, can help inform our collective understanding of the national collections. Next slide, please, Alan. ICANN is guided and supported by a steering committee, which is comprised of 2 community reps who bring to the table the group perspective and raise any issues or topics of interest or concern brought to them by members. Plus, we have 1 representative each from the National Museum, the Local Authority Heritage Officer Network, the Heritage Council, which is the state agency for heritage, and Creative Ireland, which is a state culture and wellbeing programme. And I have to say, we're extremely grateful to Creative Ireland for their financial support, which has enabled the development of 11 additional archives over 2019 and 2020. Both myself as Project Development Officer and Hassan Daba, the Network Administrator, are based in the National Museum, and we both work part-time. We coordinate the network's activities and facilitate the core training and technical support, working in tandem with our partners on the ground. On slide 5 now. This slide shows the locations of the 28 archives in the network, currently clustered in the west and the east of the country. Our ultimate aim is to build a nationwide network with archives in all 26 counties. Currently, all of the archives have a local history focus, but ICANN is open to any group that self-identifies as a community and that would like support in collecting, preserving and sharing their history online. Membership is free, but groups need to meet a criteria to be eligible to join. Firstly, they need to have a committee or body of volunteers sharing a common interest and a desire to establish and maintain a community archive to professional standards. That the group has a collection or has identified a potential collection that includes primary source material. And that there are sufficient people willing to work on the project and train as editors, and that there is a commitment to maintaining their archives on a long-term basis, because community archives are not just for Christmas. And finally, that the group embraces the ethos of the project, including a willingness to engage with their local community and to contribute to the project as a whole. Slide 6, please. The ICANN ethos is founded on the values of partnership, collaboration, inclusivity, ownership, empowerment, and respect. By joining ICANN, members are signing up to our ethos, and adherence to these values is crucial, really, to building trust between partners and ensuring that the needs and the voice of the community groups drive the project. Our ethos acknowledges and respects our differences and encourages the sharing of knowledge, skills, resources, and information. Next slide, please. Through partnership and collaboration, all parties, I should say, work together to contribute to and benefit from the project. Since 2013, our strategic partnerships with the local authority heritage officers have been key to the ICANN model, as they remove financial barriers to access by funding the setup of the community archive websites, so that the only cost to the groups is the annual hosting and maintenance fee. The heritage officers and their colleagues also provide invaluable local coordination and support, as well as additional training and resources. In turn, the ICANN partnership assists the heritage officers in meeting the objectives of their county heritage plans. Over the years, we've formed links and established collaborations with a broad range of people and organisations that are mutually beneficial. So in this way, our network extends well beyond those directly involved. Next slide, please, Alan. ICANN is founded on these 5 key pillars. Firstly, groups have subsidised access to a versatile and user-friendly digital platform, which is provided by community sites. We hold 4 network meetings per year and hold regional meetings to progress archival development at county level. We provide training and technical support, as well as professional guidance across a broad range of areas. And we have established a buddy group system, which pairs fledgling groups with more established and experienced members, providing an extra layer of peer support. The network structure ensures groups can share their experiences, information, resources and skills, and can access a range of professionals and volunteers to assist them with their work on the ground. Next slide, please. ICANN provides a comprehensive training programme to support both the development of a digital archive and the group's related activities. The training is delivered primarily by myself and Hassan, and we also engage specialist facilitators in response to group needs and as the budget allows. Hassan also provides an essential technical support service, dealing with any website issues, working with members on customised online projects, and developing a range of support resources. Most recently, we launched some how-to videos on a range of different topics. We undertake a training audit each year to establish needs, and as noted previously, our partners provide additional training locally. Participants that develop proficiencies are encouraged to pass these on to others in their own groups and to other groups in the network. As well as the buddy group system and skill sharing, we take a MEHL approach to supporting each other and achieving our goals. MEHL is the Irish word for cooperative action, where traditionally groups of neighbours would help each other in turn with farming work such as harvesting crops. Next slide, please. Our meetings provide an opportunity to network and socialise. Members are brought up to speed on developments and they can update each other on their own activities. We discuss challenges and opportunities and make collective decisions. Pre-COVID, our meetings were hosted by a community in their locality and included lovely time to chat and get to know each other over lunch, a talk or training session, and a tour of local heritage sites by the host community. But as we've been saying, times have changed. So recently we held our first network meeting online, which was very different, but we felt we were still able to facilitate the main aims of updates and discussion and the sharing of skills and experience through group presentations. Our members have told us that the network meetings are a very important aspect of the project as they find them informative, enjoyable, inspiring and motivational. On to slide 11, please. We've gathered evidence of ICANN's benefits and impacts through an external project evaluation which was carried out in 2016, an anonymous participant survey undertaken earlier this year, as well as anecdotal information provided by the groups in their updates. The project evaluation found that participation in ICANN had enabled groups to achieve their goals and had led to greater inclusivity and an improved sense of community, raising broader awareness and appreciation of local history and heritage, and changing the way communities saw themselves. The skills, knowledge and confidence that participants had developed had resulted in opportunities such as third-level education or jobs in the heritage and tourism sectors, and in community development initiatives such as improvements to local amenities. This quote by David Collins nicely sums up the key impacts highlighted by the evaluation. Dave says, "The ICANN project opened up a whole new world for me as I developed the skills and confidence to transform from a participant to a trainer and facilitator of others. Sharing the rich history and heritage of Oughterard online led to a renewed interest and pride in our area, which resulted in the significant renovation and development of the town's courthouse, now a thriving heritage and exhibition centre at the heart of the community." Next slide, please. The community archive websites are the key project output and are rich and varied repositories of local history and heritage material. We work together to ensure that this material is accessible and reusable, so there is a strong focus on good practice around digitisation, copyright and referencing. We know that people from all over the world are drawing on the archives, including historians, genealogists, TV producers, authors, journalists, archaeologists, students, teachers and academics. And we have also seen the repatriation of 2 physical collections through contacts made via the websites. The contributory nature of the community sites platform encourages public engagement and contributions from the wider community and the Irish diaspora. As a result of collaborative transnational family history research, the archives are also generating roots tourism to our members' localities, which contributes to the local economy. A little bit about public engagement now on slide 13. Our members engage their local communities through a range of projects and activities. Just two examples are the multi-award winning Milltown Food Heritage Project, where Milltown Heritage Group in County Galway worked with their two local primary schools, and the intergenerational gathering of food-related folklore resulted in the children's work being accessioned into the National Folklore Collection. Moycullen Heritage Group's What's the Story, Rory? How Moycullen Got Its Name is a trilingual publication in Irish, English and Polish, illustrated by the pupils of their 4 local primary schools. Rory's story was last year's winner of the Carge Award for the most impactful involvement in a heritage project by young people. We also run online projects where members of the public can contribute their stories, photos and information. Currently, we have a number of online initiatives, such as the Together Apart Wicklow Stories, which aims to create a record of Wicklow life during the pandemic for future generations. And the Know Your 5K and Galway BO projects, which encourage the public to identify and record the history, heritage and biodiversity within their immediate locality while they are on lockdown. We also work on network-wide projects, such as the Our Irish Women exhibition in 2018, which was curated by members to commemorate the first votes for women. This exhibition went on display in the National Museum of Ireland for 2 months and then travelled around to each community in the network over the course of a year, informing and engaging thousands of people over its duration. Next slide, please. Since the advent of COVID-19 restrictions in March this year, we feel that we've adapted very well and have moved entirely online now. ICANN has kept members connected and informed, and in turn, the groups have utilised their websites and social media to engage people stuck at home, to inform the public about COVID-19 protocols, and to support community efforts to reduce the impact of the pandemic on the ground. And then on slide 15, just a little about our reach. Since our first archives with analytic capabilities went online in 2011, we have cumulatively recorded 1.5 million users worldwide, and we recently passed the 5.5 million page views, 1.37 million of these in the last year alone. This strong growth in 2019 to 2020 demonstrates that it does take time to build up a strong virtual visitorship, and the more active a site, the more people will visit. As you can see from the graphic, there are only a handful of countries that have yet to visit an archive in the network, and I want to acknowledge and congratulate all our members on their hard work to date, which has led to this fantastic achievement. And then on slide 16, so there you are. I hope you've enjoyed this whistle-stop tour of ICANN, and I look forward to answering any questions you might have later. But as ICANN is all about our community groups, I'm going to leave the final word to members Eric, Hazel and John, who will talk very briefly about their experience of being part of the network. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Shaw. I'm a member of Clarecastle and Ballyea Heritage and Wildlife Group in Clarecastle, County Clare. We joined ICANN in about April 2019, and to be honest, we couldn't believe our luck when we were asked to join, because over the years we've built up a lot of documentation, material, photographs, and it was all lying on 10 or 12 computers. And we were beginning to get concerned about how we were going to preserve what we had gathered on one hand, and the other hand, how could we present it properly to the local people, number one, but to Clarecastle people all over the world. ICANN, we find, are wonderful support to what our aims are, and particularly in the development of the website. We've built up a degree of confidence that there's areas that we could still learn on, but we feel a lot more confidence now. And we have a website that's up and running, and we're proud of it. One of the things that we like particularly about ICANN is there's an exchange of wonderful ideas, and you see what other projects that other groups are doing, and it gives us ideas that we can take on, have a look at, see if they suit us. I think it's a wonderful group. We've made friends with the people from other groups. We've asked for help where we've had problems. We've seen how people tackle things. So we feel that we're contributing, but we're also receiving. People are very friendly. They're very willing to help. People call it a family, and I think it is in every sense.
Hello, my name is Hazel Morrison from Michael and Heritage, and we are located in County Galway. The ICANN project has assisted us in our community heritage work in so many different ways. And some examples, I suppose, firstly, would be the ongoing training and upskilling. The platform has also allowed us to share unique archival material. And just one example for us would be some years ago, our heritage group identified a local census that was carried out here in Wycollan between 1793 and 1813. And up until then, it had remained extremely difficult to access by the general public. ICANN has also facilitated us extend our reach to connect with our wider local community and diaspora. During the recent COVID lockdown, it was great to know as well that our weekly heritage quiz that we were running, it actually was an educational engagement outlet for those that were socially distancing. Whilst ICANN is a collective of currently 28 groups, each group still maintains their own voice. Firstly, we're given ownership of our websites, which allows us to be individual in the content that we share. Secondly, our regular meetings of the 28 groups allows us to share our views, our group updates, and it allows us share skills. And I know even recently in the submission of an application for funding, I needed to insert a map and I hadn't the skill to create a map, but picking up the phone at 7 o'clock in the evening to another one of our groups at the other side of the country had my map created within 5 minutes. So the sharing of skills between us is very important. And then, of course, via 2 community representatives, we know that the views and suggestions of our small voluntary groups who are at the coalface of gathering this information, these views are taken into consideration by the partners in the future planning of the whole ICANN project.
Okay, well, my name is John O'Brien. We got involved in the ICANN project about 1.5 years ago. We've benefited greatly from our involvement. The whole idea of networking is good. When you're a small organisation working in a locality, you maybe become a little bit introverted. When you have a facility for interacting with other similar groups in other counties, I think it's a great advantage and it's quite inspiring. The training that has been provided by the project has been hugely beneficial. Also, there have been some little workshops relating to such things as public relations and fundraising and things like that. So there's a huge benefit accruing to the individual organisations. And obviously the high quality of training provided is obvious in the standard of material being published by the groups in all the counties. The interaction between the members of each group at the periodic meetings and regional meetings are very important, I think. There's always a very free exchange of ideas. So we learn from other groups and they learn from us, hopefully. And I think the direction of the ICANN project is really determined by the membership. Yeah, it's really a team effort, and there's great value in that, really, and a certain amount of inspiration being part of a team rather than being a sole operator, you know. So.
There you go.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Sorry, apologies for a couple of technical difficulties, but got there in the end. No, that was fantastic. Thank you very much. So have a little round of applause for Lorna. Silent round of applause. We've got a minute or two. Are there any immediate questions for Lorna, or would we all like to speak to her at the end of in the panel? I can see a few well dones coming up. So right, okay. Well, in that case, what I'll do is I'll hand across to Jane Golding, or the chair of CAJ, just to introduce our next two-hander speakers. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Alan. Sorry, I'm just realising I haven't got lights sort of set up and it's getting dark outside, but I hope you can still see me. Before I introduce our two networks, I'd just like to thank all our speakers so far. We were so impressed when we read your award submissions, but hearing your stories this afternoon has been wonderful, just truly inspiring. So thank you all so very much. Yes, so CAJ itself is a network. We're a national network, and we've been looking at ways to evolve to that we can support the network. For some time now, we've been running a number of regional events, and these have been a practical forum to build skills and share knowledge. And at the end of each of these events, the same thought has occurred: wouldn't it be great if we could just roll this out across the country? And at each event, ideas between groups and inspiration has flowed, connections made, links forged. But there's also been that sense that these conversations that have just got started aren't going to flourish unless we've got some sort of framework that we can use to take it forward. So we've just started up 2 pilot projects, and this was with funding from the Archives and Records Association. So the 2 projects will run for 2 years and then report back. And from this, we'll be able to assess how we want to take this forward and develop it further. And so with great pleasure now, I'm going to hand over to Donna from Southwest to talk about our Southwest network, and to Audrey who will talk about the one in Scotland. So thank you.
So hopefully can people see the Southwest network slides? Yeah, brilliant. So yeah. Are you ready to rock and roll, Donna?
Just about. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here to discuss the new Southwest Network pilot. I'm Donna, as Jane just said, thank you. I'm one of the CAJ committee members leading on the Southwest Network. As Jane's already explained, this is a 24-month pilot that we're holding down in the Southwest. We're hoping to create a network of people so we can interact with one another. As Lorna and the guys from ICANN explained, there is so much that can be got from just discussing and being building on people's ideas and using other people's knowledge and skills and experience to enhance whatever community archive organisation projects that we seem to meet every day. As Jane explained already, these pilots haven't come out of thin air. They have come from feedback from many different different events that have been held in the different areas. And just before COVID, this was discussed, that we thought this would be the time to kind of launch this kind of network. Obviously, as I'll explain a bit later on, it has made a bit of an impact, but we're still going with it. Next slide, please, Alan. So us down in the Southwest, we've currently got, I think it's 85 registered networks on the membership out of 978. I'm based down in Plymouth, but this network does cover the whole of the Southwest. There are 6 registered archives in Plymouth, of which we've had at least 3 winners of a CAJ award in the last few years. So we're quite an active region compared to some of the other regions, which was one of the reasons we chose to pilot it down here. Next slide, please. The whole concept is to bring everyone together. These are just the names of the regional networks that we have engagements with all the time. The idea is to bring them all in line together and have a level playing field so we can all work together to enhance the community networks. How we're doing it all at the moment is all coming to light. Next slide, please. So the hope for this is to introduce people together in organisations, creating a much greater connectivity and understanding of group needs, of what support actually people want within community archives down here in the southwest. Being what seems like a million miles away from the centre of everything, which seems to be London, it would be nice to bring a bit more down to the southwest. It would be great to create something sustainable here, so this can continue past the 12 months. Hello?
Oh, hello. Yeah, you're back.
Sorry, internet has just totally fell out. I do apologise.
That's all right. I wasn't sure if it was my end, your end.
No, it was this end. Totally cut off. It's been good all day. So what's happening now?
I think I might have involuntarily moved your slide as well. Did you want this?
No, that's fine. As I said, obviously, when we designed the pilot to go ahead with, we had no idea what we were going to be facing for the last 7 months. The whole idea was that we would go around the southwest and engage with people and start connecting people up. Unfortunately, through lockdown, that all completely changed. So we had to switch tact and go online. This has caused, not problems, but it has caused a new way of thinking. It has had to, it's meant things have just had to change in the way that we've been able to communicate with community projects and archives. A lot of them have kind of almost mothballed themselves. Some are prepared to go online and some are not. They're just preserving themselves and keeping going, hoping that at some point soon in the future that when we come out of lockdown, they will come back into the fold. We are actively using our membership to continue to communicate with people. We have managed, with the help of the National Archives, we did manage to do one online event on the 15th of September, which was an online workshop of how to arrange and describe your collections. We had quite a nice little turnout for the morning, which was lovely. We're still consulting with lots of the organisations and archives to see what they want next and how we can deliver this to them going forward. We're currently working on some how-to videos developed with local professionals to see if we can start putting them out to get people back in engaging into archives. And the future's looking bright. We're getting lots of positive feedback. Lots of ideas of how people want to network and link together. We're just trying to piece it all together in this new strange world we find ourselves in. Thank you. Over to Audrey.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Donna. That's great. Now, I'm just going to find Audrey's slides. He says optimistically. There we go.
Okay, good.
There we go. Yeah, that's a good sign. Can people see these? Is this?
I can anyway. That's good.
That's encouraging.
Which is really important.
Lovely. So, hand you over to Audrey.
Well, hello everyone. Yes, I am Audrey Wilson and I work part-time as the Community Engagement Officer at the Scottish Council and Archives, known as SCA for the rest of this slide presentation. And that's just my details if anyone wants to contact me. And we have got, as you can see, a Twitter account to SCA, and we have a web page as well. We have a website, sorry, I should say. So I've not been a community engagement officer for that long. I started in 2018. And one of the things that was fantastic was for me coming into a new job was then to join CAJ. And I've really enjoyed that and found it very supportive. But what I want to talk to you about today is CAJ Scotland and a little bit about, why do we need a separate group in Scotland? And that is because Scotland is, I suppose, quite different and unique. It has a population of 5.4 million people. So it's quite a big region we're talking about here. We are part of the United Kingdom, but we have a Scottish Parliament. We have executive and legislative powers, respectively, which have been devolved to Scottish Government and the Scottish Parliament since 1999. We have a different legal system. Education is different. We have different exams at school. Religion. We have the NHS Scotland, so a bit different again from the rest of the UK. And we even have different banknotes, which aren't very often liked or accepted anywhere else in the country. So the other thing is, just a little bit more up to date, is we do like to consider ourselves European. 62% of the population voted to remain. It's the highest count in the UK, followed by London, I think just under 60%. So interesting from the community point of view is we have a history of migrating, Australia, America, Canada. So people with a family connection living outside of Scotland have an amazing desire to connect with their past. So ancestral tourism is a big part of our economy. Scotland also has 3 officially recognised languages: English, Scots and Scottish Gaelic. So that's why we need a regional group, but also 2 other events happened, and I just want to quickly, briefly talk about them. And here come in my next slide. I think.
No. Oh,
oh yes, okay. So I think you can all read the Community Archives and Heritage Group Annual Conference, which took place in the Glasgow Royal Concert Hall on the 10th of July. So we had a huge response to the call for papers, and the conference committee selected 8 presentations, and we also had a keynote speaker from the Community Archive, Colour for Heritage. You can see Omar in the top there. But it also, as you know, is the CAJ AGM, it's the annual awards ceremony, and we included something a little bit different. We had a 1-minute mayhem, which is a fun event that can finish off the day where people can stand up and speak for 1 minute only before they have to leave the stage. We had to limit numbers to 100, and that was really just because of our budget. So we had a waiting list, so there was a huge interest and a desire to know more about community archives. So we received really good and positive feedback from the evaluation report, with lots of ideas to continue engaging with groups and developing a community archive network in Scotland. So the other event I want to talk to you is in the next slide, please. And that is the archive tour. So the archive tour is a result of a survey that SCA conducted to community groups in Scotland, which clearly demonstrated the need for training in conservation and storage, cataloguing standards, digital preservation. They were top 3 actually. So SCA joined with our colleagues at the National Records of Scotland, and we held a training event in Edinburgh in March 2019. It was very popular, and again, because of room capacity, it was free, but it sold out very, very quickly. And we decided that people had travelled very far. Oops, sorry. Had travelled very far. And we decided, again, because of the feedback we got, that we were going to take this event on tour. And you can see the little gift there. There were 6 places that made up our tour. And you can see the last place we were going to in March 2020 was in Stornoway, which is right at the top left there on the map. It's actually in the Hebrides, the Outer Hebrides. Next stop is America, I think, if you just kept going. And we had to go there in March because of weather. So a lot of the people who live in the islands there, they do things in the better months, because otherwise you can get stranded because ferries get cancelled and all the rest of it. But we never made it because of, everyone's mentioned it, COVID-19. So we do plan to go there. We haven't been there, so we haven't quite finished the tour, and we will get back there soon. So they were 2 very successful events. So I'm going on to the next slide. So The evaluation from both of the events that I spoke of before has actually resulted in this infographic that I created. So CAGE Scotland will listen to and deliver outcomes for heritage, communities and people living in Scotland. Local heritage management and maintenance plans will be created, knowledge and training will be shared and disseminated, strategies for sustainable income will be diversified. So CAGE Scotland will be formed from a group of professionals and volunteers working in the heritage sector. So this combined experience and knowledge will lead to a productive partnership to protect and make accessible heritage, which is currently being lost. Communities will be able to access and learn from their own history and come together, network. We've spoken quite a lot about that before. So the capacity of communities to be a repository for heritage will be strengthened, and this sustainability will mean more individuals will become involved. They'll gain skills through training and building confidence, as well as having a sense of well-being. So the approach to setting up this network of self-supporting community archives will be based on the approach taken by the National Museums of Ireland. And that's the network we have heard from today, ICANN. So I don't really need to go too much into that. I think you know quite a lot about that. So it's a very successful approach, and it was confirmed by a recent evaluation of ICANN published in the late 2016. So we have got that group of people, and what's interesting, the professionals that do make up that group actually represent other local networks of people. So we are actually, with our little group, managing to sort of get our message across to hundreds of people, if you like. So next slide, please. So Donald's already said, not a great time to set up something new, is it? Can't really meet up in person. So we had the first meeting of the CAGE Scotland group on the 21st of July 2020, and then we've had another one on the 14th of October 2020. All online, not great, but we have progressed and we have organised a couple of events. So one of the events was a seminar by Sharon McMeekin, Head of Workforce Development at the Digital Preservation Coalition, who discussed the benefits of the online digital preservation course Novice to Know-How. And that was designed specifically for people working in community archives and heritage groups. It was very successful, and Sharon has confirmed that she will repeat the talk, which will include a link to the course, which is free, at the next CAGE webinar on the 7th of December. So there might be a link to that somewhere in the chat room actually to sign up for it. It was a hugely successful day. So what you see in front of you was we had an event. It was part of the Being Human Festival, which is still on. It takes place between the 12th and the 22nd of November. It is called Sporting and Memories Cafe, Sharing Stories and Supporting Communities. And Being Human is the UK's only national festival of the humanities. It's a celebration of humanities research through public engagement, and is led by the School of Advanced Study at the University of London, the UK's National Centre for the Pursuit and Promotion of Research in the Humanities, in partnership with the Arts and Humanities Research Council and the British Academy. So every year the festival features around 300 events across the country, working with an average of around 80 universities and research organisation in about 50 towns and cities each year. So we just ask people to drop in to join us for a cup of tea and a blether, which is just a Scots word for a chat, while learning how community groups in Scotland are using sporting archives and other resources to help people living with dementia, as well as people encountering isolation, depression, loneliness, and other mental health issues, while also supporting their families and carers. So that is all I want to say about that one. Actually, I could go on forever, but I won't. And I'm going on to my last slide now. And it is just some future events. we are very conscious. We have done a little survey and people are wanting to know more and upskill around digital. So we are going to do sort of weekly or fortnightly talks and working with someone. Oh, I noticed a spelling mistake actually. So someone who's on the Cash Scotland Committee is copyright, and someone who is very knowledgeable about digital preservation, Sean Rippington. So we're looking at doing a series of webinars and they will be on the Cash website. We're going to have our own page. We're going to share it with Donna. I should say the Southwest region, not just Donna. So you can find out lots more about our events there. We're also doing a follow-up to our very successful archive tour called Next Steps. So we'll look at the same topics again, but we'll just go into a little bit more detail with them. And that's the sort of topics we will have. We have created a Twitter account, and all our events and anything related to community archives and heritage groups in Scotland will be on that Twitter feed. So please do follow us. And that's all.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Audrey. Can we have a little round of applause for Audrey and Donna, please? You can hear me.
I can hear you.
I'm the only one who can clap with noise. So that leaves us with 10 minutes for our panel of questions. So normally we do the really embarrassing thing of making people come out and sit at the front of the room, but that's very difficult on Zoom. So Elaine's with us, Rachel's with us, Lorna's with us, and Audrey and Donna. So if anybody has got any questions for any of them, now is the time. I'm just going to have a quick look at the chat to see if anything's popped in there while I was sharing my screen. Lots of people exchanging details, but I don't think any questions. Does anybody have any questions for any of our speakers this afternoon?
Alan, it's Laurel. I've got a question, if I may.
Good. Yes, please do.
I was very impressed and entertained by the social media work around the Gold Diggers exhibition, Elaine. And I wonder if you could tell us a bit about what the thinking was behind that, and who was the driver behind that, and what impacts and results you had from your social media work.
Yeah, we use social media. We knew that quite a lot of those that were already that had gone to gold diggers and had memories of gold diggers would be using social media. So we used social media to contact people. The museum has got an amazing social media sort of focus anyway. We use social media a lot. And it was just one of the ways that we could connect with people. We used it was a way that we could, especially when we were advertising the project to try and get people involved. It was a way of connecting people, like I said. But when we went into lockdown, that was when it really was a way that we could keep the project alive and also sort of help the students as well. So we used everything. We used Facebook, we used Twitter, we used Instagram. I think one of my colleagues is even looking at TikTok now as well to start putting stuff out on TikTok, and we tried to sort of really keep the project alive via social media because it was one way that we could connect with people. One of the biggest things we did was over Easter, and we had a gold diggers or a golden Easter because we had planned events that would have been in person, and we didn't want it to go without sort of trying something. So as a staff, we did a video which we put out. We tried to get everybody engaged to try and also share videos of music and do their own music of videos, and we used social media to do some sort of workshops on making musical instruments for families. So yeah, we've made, like I said, we've used it to sort of engage people with the project, to get them involved, but also to get the results of the project out there to show what we've done. Engagement wise, we've had I couldn't tell you the figures for some of the posts, but for some of them in the thousands.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Elaine. Fantastic. I'm going to be, there's one question in the chat, and I'm going to be really horrible and pass it along to Donna, even though I'm somewhat involved with the Southwest Network and could probably answer it. But someone's asked, Donna, does the Southwest include Gloucester?
I have just had this conversation with somebody else. Gloucester is actually a bit far out of our region, but as I've said to the other lady, is as we're on an online platform at the moment, and me and Audrey have had many discussions about definitely coordinating and sharing resources and using the online platforms, is that send me your details. I've left my email addresses in the chat. We also do have a Facebook group as well, which I forgot to mention when I got cut off with the internet. We're just under Community Archives and Heritage Southwest. Ping us a message on there, and we will tie you into anything that we're doing on an online platform, and share resources as much as we possibly can.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Donna. Any more questions? I can't see any more questions in the chat. Barbie, did you want to unmute and say something? You're on mute at the moment, Barbie. You just have to.
That's better. Can you hear me now? Yeah,
can hear you now.
For Elaine, all the presentations were so interesting today, but one of the things that caught my eye was a slide that showed as if Gold Diggers was being demolished. And to me, it looked like a typical Art Deco Gaumont cinema. Was it not listed? And it must also speeded up the need for you to click all the memories whilst this was all going on as well. Can you tell me something about that, please, Elaine?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, it was an Art Deco building. It was built in 1939. It was a Gaumont cinema, designed by Trent. It wasn't listed. There was a group that got together to try and preserve the Gold Diggers, but despite everything, they didn't manage it. The biggest problem was in the 90s or the late 90s, it started to go down a little as far as the club was concerned. They had lots and lots of foam nights. The thing with the foam was the fact that it started to eat into the fabric of the building. So when they came to sort of look at the building, it was really difficult to save the interior and do much about it. So it just couldn't be saved. So yeah, it wasn't listed, it couldn't be saved, and it was demolished in 2000. There were 3 plaster reliefs on the front of the Gaumont, which then became Gold Diggers. Those 3 plaster reliefs were saved, and they are now in the building that is in its place. The building that is in its place is called Castle Lodge. It is a over 50s flats, and the 3 reliefs are on the top. The actual shape of the building has taken on the shape of what was Gold Diggers, previously Gaumont. So there's kind of an echo of what the building was like there, but yeah, it was demolished in 2000.
Any other questions? I'm all clear in the chat. I think I can't see any hands. Oh, Audrey, did you want to? Was that a hand up?
Yeah, sorry, it was. I just wanted to say, please, I mean, I think one of the benefits of Zoom and other things, digital platforms, is we can actually go to events that are quite far away. So there is nothing to prevent people from attending anything that we are organising in Scotland, because it's, it doesn't matter where you are, and anyone, I mean, really everyone is welcome, actually, just to get more ideas and to generate interest. So I'm sure Donna would say the same.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, I think that brings us to just about ending on time, actually. So could I just take a moment to say thank you to everyone who's spoken today and shared. It's all been really interesting, and you can see why judging the awards is such an exciting time every year. And then before we go, could I just give a little plug to our next seminar, which is happening on the 7th of December at 3 o'clock. So you can book in much the same way as you probably booked for this one, just via the CAS website, and it'll ping you off to Eventbrite. But hopefully lots of you can join us there to hear from our last award winners and to think a bit about gathering and preserving heritage. And thank you all very much for being part of the event today. And hopefully see you all soon, probably on Zoom the way things are going, but maybe in real life sometime soon too. Okay. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
And thank you to you as well, Alan. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.